Hi, welcome to this video in which I will be reviewing the 2018 Giant Propel Advanced SL1, which is this orange and black beauty that you see in front of me. And I'm also privileged enough to have the 2017 exact same model of this bike. So not only will I review the 2018, but I'll also compare it to the 2017 and see what changes 1 year holds, and also evaluate whether the difference in terms of price is worth it. Okay, so both of these bikes are in a medium size, which actually suits me pretty well. I am 5'9", weigh about 145 pounds, and these bikes actually fit me just right. I fall right into that size zone for the Giant specifications. One thing I will say, and you'll notice this while we're talking about size, is that the SL versions of the Propel come with the integrated seat post. So you do in fact have to cut the seat post to fit your height. You can see the heights are about the same. The only challenge that I did face with the 2018 model is that I had to take the height down to the maximum that Giant would allow. So I was a bit surprised. I had more room to play with on the 2017 model. 2018 I pretty much took it down to the minimum height, which kind of surprised me, but nevertheless managed to make it work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just focus on the 2018 initially, and just highlight some of the new features that come with the 2018 model over the 2017. And there are a number of them. The first thing I would have to say is that there's a general emphasis on the aerodynamic capabilities of the bike. And you can see just at a glance, just looking at the shape of the frame relative to the 2017, that there's a lot less clutter on the 2018. Only has the frame been designed more aerodynamically, but they've also tidied up a lot of the cabling, so that is significant. The 2018 model has been wind tunnel tested, and there have been some unique approaches that have been taken there. You can check those out on the Giant website. They'll tell you all about that. But it's supposed to be the most aerodynamic frame that they have ever produced, and I think that is notable and evident from the shape of the tube, the frame, and I think that they've done a really good job there. The other thing that is significant is the integrated handlebar and stem, which you can see quite clearly here, and has drawn quite a lot of attention and discussion. And all of the cabling is channeled through the stem. You'll notice there that the handlebar is integrated to the extent that it can in fact be detached, but it only fits really in one way. I do believe that there are varying lengths of stem that you can get with the bike. So it happens that this one works well for me, and being able to make it work well, I've taken a few of these spaces out to lower the handlebar height, and that's a little bit complicated because you have to actually cut the fork to make that fit comfortably, but I was actually able to do that quite easily on my own. You just need to be comfortable with measuring twice and cutting once. Another feature of the 2018 Propel, which is probably the most significant of all, is that the bike is only available now in the disc brake, and these are the Shimano Ultegra discs on here, and that is pretty significant. Definitely adds some additional stopping power. Modulation is better, obviously better in all weather conditions. And they say that positioning the disc brakes where they are in that part of the bike where the air is being disrupted by the pedaling anyway, kind of further enhances the aerodynamic effects of the bike. So that is significant. The other thing that's related to the braking and to the wheel system is that there are through axles now on the Propel, and you can see that the bike actually does come with a through axle with a quick release lever that you see sticking outside of the disc there, and that can be tightened up or loosened and then the through axle removed. There's also one that comes without the quick release handle that requires a 5mm hex wrench to insert or extract, and that apparently and obviously increases the aerodynamic effect of the bike as well. So I think those are the key things that are new. The 2018 model also comes with the latest Ultegra, which is the 8070 group set, and that comes obviously with that nicer looking, I think, crankset. It comes with DI2, and that has been marginally improved, although quite honestly I couldn't really notice the difference there. But you know, Ultegra, a great group set. In DI2, it's just as good as ever. The other difference I would say is that with the 8070 DI2, you'll see here now that the controls and buttons for that system sit now in the handlebar, whereas previously they sat in a little control box underneath the stem you can see over there. And the other thing I think it's worth mentioning about the group set that's slightly different and improved is you'll notice that the sprint buttons or shifters now sit just slightly lower down on the handlebar, and I actually just find that a little bit more comfortable and easy to reach when you're in that kind of in the drops and in the sprint position. So that, I think, is the kind of summary of all things new on the 2018 bike. I think a few other things that are worth noting, and I'll kind of get into more of a comparison now between the two, is if you just look at the at the shapes of the frame, you can see where Giant have obviously spent some more effort and energy. I think the whole headset area here, the head tube, is definitely slightly more muscular than it was on the old bike. You can see that. I think the other thing is if you look here at the back end of the frame, where the top tube intercepts the seat post, you can see it's slightly more muscular and integrated there, you know, relative to the old frame. So there's definitely some strength and I think torsion or stiffness built into the frame at that point. I think the other thing that's worth noting is just the kind of the squareness of the down tube here, which is actually quite attractive, and I would imagine strengthens and beefs up that down tube. I think it's slightly wider and it's definitely slightly squarer than the old, so you can see that quite notably there. The other thing I think it's worth mentioning just about the frame and the fork is I think if you look at the fork on the 2018, it just looks slightly more steady, or sturdy I should say, and aggressive. It looks a little bit kind of more angled going out from the top down to the bottom, whereas in the 2017 model it's just slightly narrower at the top and kind of flares out a bit more at the bottom, and I suspect that the new shape just creates a little bit more stiffness. So I think there's, to sum it up, I'd say a lot of marginal improvements between the 17 and the 18. So the other things that remain pretty constant on both bikes is they both come with tubeless tires, and the frames and tires are set up as they come. The difference in the 2018 model is they use the giant Garvia Race Zero tire, and in 2017 they were using the Garvia SL1. It's hard to see the difference other than the labeling, although I would say that the Race Zero's list looks slightly more grippy and a little bit more supple, I think, than the 2017 tire. So that's interesting. I have enjoyed racing with the tubeless technology over the last year, and I did make the mistake when I first got the 2017 model of running slightly higher PSI than I needed, and lost a little bit of grip and had a couple of scary moments. So the secret with tubeless is just to make sure that you are running the right PSI. You can definitely come down a bit, have a slightly more supple ride, and also be safer and have the right degree of grip. Okay, so I think that's kind of like a summary of the technical aspects of the bikes, and then just having a kind of a general look at the two of them side by side. Very, very similar looking bikes. I think there's no doubt, though, that the 2018 model definitely has a cleaner appearance. Looks more aggressive, looks more simple, and simple is good. In terms of weight, interesting. The 2017 model weighs in at about 16.8 pounds, which is very light for an aero bike. And that's as you see it, with pedals and with the bottle cage on it. The 2018 bike weighs about a pound more, 1 pound, so it comes in at about 17.8 pounds, which is still pretty light for an aero bike. Obviously, a little bit of a penalty in weight in terms of the disc brakes, I would say, and I think the frame might just be slightly stiffer and slightly heavier. So not a lot of difference really in the weight. In terms of how they ride, I would have to say I had an amazing year with the 2017 bike, and I really didn't think that it could get any better than that. Just an incredibly aggressive, fast, responsive machine with good handling. I've always found it to be a good-looking bike. A little bit untidy with some of the cabling, and I was never sure how these TRP rim brakes were going to perform. I didn't really like the way that they looked. I think they could have gone with just basic Ultegra brakes, fixed mount maybe. I don't know that they're very aerodynamic, despite the fact that the front brakes are behind the fork. But I have to say, never had any issues with these brakes. They performed very well. Never had an issue to wish that I had disc brakes, and entirely happy with the performance of the bike. So why did I get the 2018 bike? Well, two reasons really. One, I have a son who is getting into racing, and so I think I'll probably hand over the 2017 bike to him. But the technology advancement in the 2018 bike was, I think, just too good to resist. And so I took the plunge, and yeah, I'd have to say the differences are definitely worth it. And I think the main differences to me are the 2018 Propel is definitely a little bit more aggressive, and it's faster as well. It's hard to imagine that it could be, but it is. This is a speed machine. There's no doubt about that. It looks the part, and it actually plays the part. The other thing I would say is that the handling of the bike has been improved, and I just think it's just ever so more predictable and agile in cornering. I just feel a little bit more confident on it that, you know, I can lean in and it's going to handle the turning. Just feels, I don't know, just a little bit more predictable. So I have to say, you know, the advancement in technology, the ability to ride the 2018 bike in all weather conditions with the disc brakes, you know, the next generation of Ultegra group set, the aerodynamic aspects of the bike, the cleanness of the appearance, you know, I think it's definitely a 15 to 20% improvement on the old bike. Is the price difference worth it? Interestingly enough, this version of the Propel, the 2018, sells for just over $7,000. That's the retail price in the US, whereas the 2017 bike was selling for about $5,200. So there's about a $2,000 difference between the two. Is that worth it? I think what you're paying for there, you're obviously paying for disc technology. You're paying for a later version of the Ultegra Di2, and you're obviously paying for the advanced features of the frame, and also the you know, the aerodynamic features, integrated handlebars, stem. So yeah, I mean, I think it's marginal. You know, $2,000 is, if I had to put a value on the difference between the two bikes, I'd probably put it at more like $1,000, maybe $1,500. $2,000 feels a little bit extreme. But you know, it's the latest technology, and you're always going to pay a bit more for that. One final thing I want to mention, I kind of omitted this earlier on, is just looking at the wheels. So the wheels are, you know, on both bikes are the giant carbon. They're made in partnership with DT Swiss, so they're essentially DT Swiss hubs and rims. The difference that you notice is that in the 2018 model, the front depth of the rim varies from the back. The back is about 60 millimeters. The front, I believe, is about 30. Whereas if you look at the 2017 model, it's about 40 mil front and back. So that's an interesting concept. The idea is that with the varying depths of front to back, you get slightly less wind buffering from the front when you've got crosswinds blowing in particular. And I have to say, I've ridden the 2018 bike in crosswinds, and it definitely does feel stable. Not that I thought the 2017 bike was particularly unstable. So again, marginal gains. And then, yeah, very, very, very last thing, and then I'm gonna wrap it up. So, you know, mounting your GPS computer on these bikes is interesting. On the 2017 model, I have actually bought a mount, out front mount, which works very well on the bike. The 2018 model does in fact come with an extended front mount. I don't particularly like it because it actually is quite heavy, so I chose not to use it. And what you can see I've done here is I've put in a standard Garmin mount, and I've just fed the rubber band through the little gap there in the stem cover. And I happen to use the Garmin Edge 25, which is a very small, compact unit, so it doesn't really impact the airflow, and I'm saving quite a lot of weight. So I like the kind of the neatness of that. But if you really want a clean flow, then you would probably put the front mount on, which actually goes onto the bottom two bolts there of the stem cap. So that's another little thing that's worth knowing. Okay. So I appreciate you watching the video. I know it's a little bit rambling. It's a little bit about my own experience and things that strike me about these bikes. I love them both. If my son doesn't want to take over the 2017 Propel, I will rotate them. And I hope to have as much fun and racing success on the 2018 as I had on the 2017. And I think I'm good. I think I'm good for aero bikes for a little while. I'm very grateful that my team is sponsored by Giant, and we get a very good team support and discount on these bikes at the end of each year. So that does enable me to afford bikes that would normally be outside of my reach. But having said that, I think Giant really do offer tremendous value. They make quality products, and I think anybody who buys either the 2017, 18, or even 2019 Propel will be very happy with their purchase.